SalesTV.live. Actually, the last of season 1, I should add, of the North American edition, which in season 2, coming when, Adam?
I think the 9th of January, isn't it?
9th of January. Well, we may change the formatting of the name. So anyway, we did plan to have a guest today, Jeanne Sachs. We are expecting her, although she's not here yet. And the topic is how to have more impactful conversations by simplifying your message. So with or without Jeanne, we will talk about that topic. But before we get started, let's introduce ourselves. I'll kick things off with, my name is Alex Abbott. I'm the founder of Sapiro, often known as the bearded sales guy. I'm not quite sure why that is, but I'm also known as the the creator of the conversation operating system. And so with that, Adam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Adam Bray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite, and there isn't anything else actually. That's it.
Brilliant. So I think we're still live. We have lost Rob. So shall we kick the discussion off? So I'd love to get your thoughts on something that Jeanne was going to talk to us about, and that is the power of solution selling and storytelling. Now, I feel like we've gone full circle, because for a number of years, certainly in the early part of my career, this term solution selling was bandied around when we were feature selling. So I'm talking about selling software. And then all of a sudden, solution selling became value selling. And now it feels like we're back to solution selling.
Hello. That took a minute.
Jeanne, welcome.
Hi. That wasn't working well, but it finally worked. I finally got it to work.
Excellent. We kind of started without you, but we were just going deep into the weeds of solution selling and value selling. But let me back up, and we've introduced ourselves. Do you want to take a moment? By the way, it's great to see you again.
Nice to see you too. I'm glad I actually was able to get in.
Excellent. And for those that don't know, Jeanne and I have known each other for, I think, about a year or so, 18 months. Yep. I had the pleasure of meeting Jeanne back then, 18 months or so ago. More recently, we spoke about her appearing on Sales TV. The topic is simplifying your messaging. But before we get into that, Jeanne, do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a sales and marketing leader. I've spent my entire career either in media or technology. I'm currently the SVP sales at a SaaS startup. I'm actually looking for a new role. I will be leaving the company I'm at right now, and I also run an advisory business called First Tracks Advisors, along with my business partner Dan Hurwitz, who I think is watching. And together we help and advise early stage companies so they avoid all the mistakes we usually see them make later on, so that they set themselves up for success as early as possible.
Nice. So great to have you. So should we kick things off with the topic today? So we spoke about the importance of simplifying your message and having really impactful conversations by doing so. Do you want to kind of share with us what that means to you?
Yeah, so over the years, both working for startups full-time as well as advising them, what we find pretty often is that when you say to a founder, what do you do? What you typically get is a description of the underlying technology that they built their platform on. And so, I could give you some examples, but we typically hear we built an AI-based cloud platform that delivers, XYZ, and 90% of the people would be like, yeah, that sounds really interesting, but what do you do? So one of the things that I think is challenging is, people are really excited and they're very proud of what they built their technology on, but there's a difference between what you built and what the value is to your end customer. And so helping create that translation and make sure that messaging is so clear so that your value proposition is, we say, digestible by a 5-year-old, is incredibly important, both for your marketing messaging, how you're approaching the market, your sales team, so they understand what they're out in the market talking about, and even on your investor deck, if you want to be able to raise capital, being able to really clearly and effectively state your value proposition, and if you're saving somebody money or you're making them money or how you're really helping a business, at the end of the day, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Jeanne, I love that. I work with a lot of startups as well. I mentor through a few incubators, and I also teach marketing at Northeastern University. I love to talk about simplifying the message. And you're right. When you ask that question, what do? They go on and on and on. Dude, if this was an elevator pitch, we're at the top of the Empire State Building and on our way back down. Let me help you out, I tell them.
Yeah.
When you hear the question, what do you do? Don't answer that question. Answer the question, what do you do for me?
Yes.
You add those two little words to the end of that question, and it becomes a very different conversation.
Well, there's a brilliant video, isn't there, of Steve Jobs when he went back to Apple after having been ousted, and he bought the company back. And he famously said about it being a very noisy world, and we're not going to get, I've got it up on screen now, we're not going to get a chance to get people to remember much about us. And I just love the simplicity of the way he delivers that pitch. You know, it's about selling the dream, and it's about making it, I love what you said, Jeanne, where it was about making it easily digestible by a 5-year-old. Because, you know, it's a flippant thing to say, but you have to go into every conversation with the belief that everyone in the world except you is an idiot. And if it's possible for people to misunderstand you, they will.
Yeah.
So you have to make it so obvious and straightforward and unambiguous. And yeah, people get so excited, you know, about telling their own story, don't they? So we've got this fantastic tool and it does this and it's got this functionality and it does this and it integrates with these things. And it's like, but you still haven't told me what it is.
Exactly. Or what it does, or how does it serve your customer, whether it's me or someone else. Dan and I have this trick we always use when we talk to people, and we say to them, if you want to figure out how to tell your story, usually we say, when you're facing this challenge in your company where I'm trying to think of a good challenge. I'm like so bad on the fly with these things, but when I'll use my current company as an example. You know how when you're in a company and you have tons of documentation, product documentation, technical documentation, and it's extremely hard to manage, and you're reusing the same content over and over and over again and having to rewrite it, and it's extremely time consuming, and then you don't have the right version, and it's impossible to manage all that. Well, we solve that for you. So, and then you can talk about how you solve that problem. But it's about how do you get to the root cause, the root of, are you solving a problem for somebody? Or are you helping them make more money? Like, how are you really serving your customer? Because that's what people care about. Like, that's what's really going to resonate.
Yeah. So we were just as you were joining, Jeanne, we were talking about this idea of solution selling, and Adam and I were chatting just as we were doing intros, and you disappeared, Rob. So I apologize if we've not done the intros formally, but we were chatting about this sort of evolution of sales and how before solution selling, when you're selling software, it was really feature-based selling. Then after solution selling, there became value selling, and then it seems like we're coming back to solution selling, almost like a full circle. I don't know what your view is on solution. Perhaps you want to share with us your view of the world in relation to solution selling.
Oh, you're asking
Jeanne?
me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they go hand in hand, right? So, if you're selling, unless you're selling a widget, and even I think even if you're selling a widget, unless you're really understanding the problem you're solving for your customer, or how you're helping your customer, it's going to be pretty hard to be successful making that sale. You have to make it's sort of like a thread that goes through the whole sales process from, really, I used to tell salespeople, do your homework, really understanding that customer, really understanding their pain points, and then tying the link between their pain points and your solution. And so that's really the beauty of solution selling, is how do you make sure that what you're selling is really solving the challenge that your customer is trying to solve, and uncovering that during the sales process. And if your sales story is not polished and is not designed in a way to focus on the needs of your customer, even if you understand their problems, you're really not going to be able to do a good job explaining how you solve them. So, and in a succinct way. And I think there's sort of another piece of that, which is, that emotional connection, right? Everyone says people don't buy on necessarily just facts. They buy on emotion. So, if you're telling the story in the right way and you're personalizing that story and making it applicable to them, then you're really starting to build that relationship and build that connection. And I think, people want to buy from people they trust, and you have to build that trust. And solution selling helps you do that.
Yeah. I think solution selling can mean different things to different people. And I love the idea of storytelling. But it's often quite a difficult skill to teach someone to do.
Yeah.
I mean, understanding the concept of storytelling is quite easy, and perhaps learning a story is quite easy, but then being able to tell that story in a way that is contextually relevant to the customer or the buyer, and then use that as an opportunity to kind of dive into those, discovery and qualification questioning that then better uncovers the pain of the buyer.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that there's a combination. You can't go in cold, meaning you need to, as I said, do your homework and really know quite a bit about that customer even before you have that conversation. And frankly, they probably know quite a bit about you before they go into that conversation, because we all know and have seen the research that customers are, doing, something like 70 to 90% of their own research on whether or not they want to be interested in this particular product, even before they talk to a salesperson. So that, that piece of it is, everybody's pretty well prepared before you have that initial conversation. I think then it makes it easier to create that story, because you hopefully will have a pretty, and even if you're not 100% right, the fact that you really did the research, that you have a point of view, that you are, working to understand that customer ahead of them even speaking to you, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah.
So how, as a seller, how do you know when you have gone from that kind of storytelling thing? When, yada, 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 and the customer is kind of leaning forward, listening to what it is that you're saying. And then you kind of, even though you don't want to, you start to geek out a bit. And you end up talking about this little widget down here and this little knob over here. And the client is kind of, or the prospect is kind of thinking, oh, not another one.
Yeah.
So how do you know when you've overstepped that line?
So I work really hard not to geek out unless they want to, right? So some customers will say, okay, I totally get it. Can you please really dig into the features of your product, right? And they want to really understand the nitty-gritty features and functionality of your product. Usually I have a sales engineer with me who will do that part because they're going to know the product inside and out and be able to really geek out with the customer if they want. But depending on the type of customer you're talking to, a lot of them don't. I mean, they really they want to know on a high level what it does for them. And it depends, it depends who you're talking to in the organization, right? Are you talking to the day-to-day user? Are you talking to the economic buyer? Who are you speaking to? But I think you really have to understand how far they want to go, and you need to ask that question. How much do you want to know about the actual nitty-gritty of the product itself right now? We can get into it and geek out if you want, or we can just talk about the high-level benefits and business outcomes related.
Yeah, I've never been in a meeting where a client has said, do you know what, I'd like to explore some of those features in a little bit more detail. I was actually in the Middle East on one occasion in a meeting, and a client shouted at the pre-sales person for God's sake, shut up, which was quite interesting.
Wow.
As it happens, he didn't. He just kept on talking.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's never a good sign.
Although I have been in a situation where the customer thinks they know what they want when it comes to the features and some of the technicalities in the software. But actually, when they've told you their primary objective is something else like revenue growth, then knowing that at the time, the platform we were selling was weak in that area around analytics, but strong in the area of creating programs that were aligned to driving engagement and revenue. And so quite a difficult conversation to have, to say, well, actually, what we really want to be talking about is this, not that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but our requirements are this. Yeah, but hang on, you told me your objective was to drive revenue. What's more important, revenue or these features?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Bob Britton. You need to practice pausing and letting the silence hang. If you tell the good story, the customer will tell you one back.
That was beautifully delivered, Rob.
Nice
Jeanne,
pause. Nice pause.
Thank you. Jeanne, when you're geeking out at the customer's request,
Yeah.
how do you avoid going down the path of jargon speak? Or what do you do to avoid that, or when you find yourself going down that path?
Yeah, I think that also goes back to who's your audience, right? You have to know your audience. And, some customers, if you're not using jargon, actually, they're going to be a little like, I get it. Like, just use the actual technical terminology. And then other people, if you're talking to an engineer, that's a little bit different than you're talking to a business person or somebody in marketing and so depending on who the audience is really drives how you talk about the product and the features of the product. You can talk about it in business terms and say, here are the key features that you need to think about, and here's the business outcomes they drive for you. They save you time, or they save you money, or they make this process faster, or they give you more accountability, or they give you data and insights that you don't typically have. Or you can get into the nitty gritty on, this is backed by an AI engine with natural language processing and, and get into some of the technology behind it. But I think that, again, I think the best thing you can do as a salesperson is really make sure that you're having a real conversation, that, you don't, the agenda isn't, I have to tell this person everything under the sun, otherwise they're not going to buy my product. And I think that's a typical trap that salespeople fall into. I just have to tell them everything because this is my one chance. And mine is, no, have a real conversation, like really understand, like, what do they need? What's going to help them make a decision in this process? What challenges are they really trying to solve for? How are they evaluating this? You know, I think if you have a real understanding of that, even if they're talking about, I'd love to see some features. What are you trying to understand about our features? You know, what's going to help you, you know, get a handle on how we can deliver against your needs. So I think it's all part of that conversation of, you know, not just assuming, right? I think the assuming part is what gets you in trouble.
But Jeanne, I have a quota, and I have to make this sale, and I have to make this sale right now. So this is my one shot. I have to tell them everything.
Right.
And,
well,
and simplifying it.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, simplifying it is fine, but I think it still comes back to listening. I used to teach. I used to have every sales team I had for a really long time. I used to bring in a trainer. Unfortunately, she retired. She was really good though, to teach listening skills, because salespeople are notoriously bad at that, and it really helps because you not only, you know, get a better understanding of what somebody's really trying to tell you, but that other person really feels heard. And that's a huge part of the process, that trust factor. So I always tell people, yes, you have to hit your quota, but telling them everything isn't going to make that happen. Having them understand that you can deliver upon their needs, whatever form that takes, as you discuss it, is what's really going to help you get the sale. They may not want to know, or they may not even need half the features and functionality you need that you have in your platform. I've heard that so many times from founders. We have all these customers and they use like 20% of what's available in our product, but that's the 20% they care about.
Yeah, it's often, you know, when you hear that features question from the customer, it's easy to think that's a buying signal, when actually they're just trying to think about how your solution fits in the way that they actually think themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't know what they don't know. And I think part of a salesperson's job is to help open their eyes to what can be done, thinking about the software or the solution differently.
But the problem also is when you are giving somebody a features demonstration of a product, it's like watching one of your children play Call of Duty, isn't it? You know, where they're rattling through all of these different functions and saying, you just do this and you just do that and you just do this, and you're watching it and you're in a completely different place to them, so you've no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So when somebody says, well, you just go to the drop down over here and select from one of your predetermined customer, you know, ideal customer profiles, and then you select this and you merge it into that, and it's like, you might as well be speaking Latin for all the value I'm getting from this conversation.
Yeah.
Thankfully, you don't get killed like you do in Call of Duty.
Well, there is that.
I lose the job. Yeah. But, you know.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's a challenge in especially in tech sales is what you just said, Adam, is the, you know, when you do a product demo or you're having a sales engineer walk through the product, it's overwhelming for the customer. We, at my last company, people I could see their eyes glaze over. I mean, it was really brutal. And so we actually did some training with our sales engineer, and we wound up almost creating a script that made it a lot simpler and a lot more digestible, and really focused on the key elements that we think most customers were going to care about. I mean, obviously he's not a robot. he's a person with a brain, and he's really smart, actually. So, you know, there were nuances to that, but I think, you know, the tendency was to go really deep, and most customers didn't really want to go that deep. And so a lot of them didn't even have the engineering knowledge to know the nitty gritty like we knew it. So having that, you know, tailoring that in a way that made it feel a little bit less intimidating and a little easier to digest, and simplifying it made all the difference.
Yeah, I think that when you're an expert at something, the problem is that you assume everyone else knows what you know.
Exactly.
And there's that famous story, isn't there, about the furniture salespeople, where they used to sell Scotch guarding as an add-on for the furniture. And then it became common practice, and Scotch guarding was everywhere, done by every furniture manufacturer. So they stopped demonstrating it to people. And then they noticed their sales were declining and declining and declining. And then they started to sell it as an option again, and the sales went up. Simply that they were showing people that, you know, you can pour liquid on and it just flows straight off because it's specially treated with the and it's this idea that well, it's obvious. Well, no, it's obvious to you. It's not obvious to me. You know, you spend your life immersed in this tool, software, whatever it is. I, on the other hand, am seeing it for the first time. And Alex and I used to work together at a big tech company, and often I found the most successful sales were when the demo was done by the customer success people, because they understood what the problem was from the user's perspective. The pre-sales person was like, here are a million features, I'm going to walk you through all of these, and then you'll be overwhelmed by how wonderful our product is. Whereas the people that were in client success would say, okay, well, the mistake that most people make is that they do this wrong, so here's how easy it is to do it on here. And then, oh wow, that's amazing. And I often found that those were the people that I wanted with me in the sales conversation rather than pre-sales people.
Interesting. I love that. I think that's really, yeah, I think it's how do you train your sales engineers to speak about it in a way that it's really customer centric. It has to be customer centric.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look at the time.
Yeah, look at the time. The time has flown by. We are up. So first of all, Jeanne, I wanted to thank you very much for joining us today, and to those in the audience that had comments to share and insights, thank you as well. This wraps up season 1 of Sales TV Live.
And what a great way to finish.
Absolutely.
Great way.
We have learned a lot this year. We have learned a lot this season, and we will be coming back with season 2 starting January 9th. Look for some changes and look for a lot that still remains the same. Our audience is an important part of what we do. Our guests are central to what we do. So thank you all for being a part of it. Have a safe and happy holiday season, and we'll see you next season.
Thank you, guys. It was wonderful.
Yeah. And
thank you very much for joining
let
us.
me
Holidays,
say,
everybody.
Let me say, if we have time, we've had 57 guests this season. Sorry, 57 episodes, 35 guests. And we are looking for guests in season 2. So if anyone is interested, please drop us a note on LinkedIn.